Hey, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast here on the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and please join me in welcoming my podcast partners in crime, Josh Briley and Richard Mulligan of P3 Radio. Guys, how are we doing this lovely Sunday morning?
Awesome, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing pretty good. We've For those who aren't patrons, we've just spent 30 minutes talking about last night's Royal Rumble. So if you want to hear our opinions on the Royal Rumble, make sure you subscribe to Patreon. It's just $5 a month. You can test that out and hear what we talk about before and after the show here each and every week.
It's usually not current wrestling talk, so that was a little refreshing. Yep. I was glad that we could, just talk about some current stuff. Felt good.
Yeah, I rarely watch any to be able to talk about it. So, but I do catch pay-per-views every now and again. And I don't know. I guess if they're going to start putting some of these AEW pay-per-views on Max, I may catch bits and pieces of them. I don't know. Are they still 6 hours long? Good God. The last one I bought I think is when Punk won the belt back. And it went on till fucking 1 o'clock in the morning. It felt like, it was the night that MJF came out at the end with the reveal that he had been the wild card or whatever and won that battle royal.
Yeah.
And then Punk went off in the press conference, which is still one of my favorite things of all time. Tremendous.
I mean, I spent most of my time there towards the end of AEW going, who's this Japanese guy? And why do they make me feel like a piece of shit for not knowing him?
I love you refer to it as the end of AEW as if it no longer exists.
Oh, it doesn't exist.
It does for some people. It does for some people.
I think the last time we did a review for BT when he was reviewing Dynamite was the last time I watched. That after we stopped doing the reviews, that was it. I got to the point where I was so sick of just this bullshit. They would just do senseless bullshit, and I couldn't latch on to it anymore. Even Punk couldn't draw me back in.
Well, not to turn this into a current show, but I just find it crazy that, like, WWE is presenting a guy like Penta as a big deal and, making him look like a star. And then AEW signs all these people that, American fans have only heard of and seen clips of. Like Okada and Will Ospreay and all them. And within just a few weeks, they just feel like another face in the crowd, just like another, Chuck Taylor or Trent Beretta that they just pulled from an indie somewhere. It's crazy that how they can make that happen. But they do. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
There's enough podcasts out there bitching about AEW. We don't want to step on Jim's toes. So we'll keep it moving here. Quickly, before we get going, we'll try to keep this going another week or two. By our friend, the Spellbinders action figure, rushfigures.com. They're still taking pre-orders. Look at that. It comes with a top hat. It even comes with underwear, apparently. The one that Richard's got's coming comes with underwear. So make sure you go to rushfigures.com and get you a action figure of our friend, the Spellbinder, Del Rios. And hopefully, if we buy it up, there'll be some more coming, right?
I'm going to call him and get some sound drops, and I'm going to make mine have that little pull string in the back. It was like, hey, brother, you're going over tonight.
Hey, brother, I got your underwear.
Hey, walk into these streamers. Hey, walk helplessly into these streamers that I throw.
So last week, we introduced our new hotline, if you will, where people can call in, they can leave us messages, they can either call it, they can text it. Of course, if you don't want to call or text, you can message us on Facebook. You can send us an email at uswapodcast@outlook.com. But guys, I've got some exciting news.
Hey,
we've received our first message on the hotline.
Awesome.
So, our audio doesn't always play great on here, how our game show music will like cut in and out. So I've had to take the audio from this voicemail and then make it into like a little video here. But check out this. I don't know. It was they didn't identify themselves, and it was caller ID was blocked. So not sure who this is, but I got an idea. Let's see what you guys think. This is First time Richard and Josh are hearing this. I didn't play it for them on the pre-show. People that have watched it can attest to it. They're hearing it here with you for the very first time. Let's check out. It's a momentous occasion. Our very first voicemail left by a fan of the Retro Wrestling USWA podcast.
Yeah, you know, everybody knows who this is right here. I'm just calling because I just want all three of you sons of bitches to know I'm listening, and I figured out you do have a problem with Mario. Okay, well, you don't know the real Mario, buddies, but I do. I was there for all this Memphis wrestling, and you sons of bitches, you don't know nothing what you think you know. Mario is Billy Robinson compared to you fucking clowns. He ran a pizzeria and he would bring me pizza all the way from West Virginia when him and Handsome Jimmy would come into town. And I'm going to give you a little inside scoop. We were going to put the unified title on Mario if the King's lawsuit went bad, you know what I mean, in 93. Y'all just don't see money. And speaking of money, it's time for me to go pick up some more passengers. I hope you all die.
Oh my!
I'm
not sure who that was, but I think we've upset them, guys.
He wants us to die.
And I mean, if what he says is true, he inferred that he was somehow involved in the office back then. I'm not going to speculate of who that might have been because they clearly he wouldn't have blocked his caller ID. But he said at the beginning, you know who this is, so folks, you can take your best guess. We're not going to out him here, but. All right. Well, there's
seems serious.
We're going to put the title on Mario.
That's what he said. I mean,
he must have brought him a lot of pizza.
Yeah, no kidding. Boy, and he skipped right past Vampire Warriors title. They were going to put the unified title. They were going to put Lawler's title on Mario. So I find that a little hard to believe that Mario would have beat Jerry the King Lawler, and he wasn't even working in the WWE at the time. But
well, think about it, though. If he rolled up into that ball, he'd be hard to pin.
Could you imagine Mario doing the Goldberg thing with both belts? Like, just hold them up.
They'd still be dragging on the ground.
They just keep getting lower and lower the longer he stands there. Oh,
he's teeter-tottering like a scale.
His belt's that heavy. So, all right. Well, let's get into the show. We don't want to dwell too long on that voicemail, but yeah, if you want to call and leave us a message, you have a counterpoint to that person's point. If you'd like to take up for us, or if you'd like to bury us too, whatever you want to do, you can call the number. It's 256-344-4766, and it's always in the description of our shows, wherever you find it.
AI has a real trouble with those numbers too.
Oh God, I forgot to. I listened to a couple of those, and I meant to load a couple up, and I got sidetracked.
So those jingles, when we were doing them this week, some of them would sound really good, and they get to that number, and they're like, "Call 566-494-949-33666667," and I'm like, "Oh wow,
part there."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but we have a few jingles there we could listen to sometime, maybe next week.
Next week, either here on the show or perhaps on the hot mic portion, we'll play 2 or 3 of them and let people decide. So look out for that next week. But right now, we have our normal opening from Dave and Corey for what is the August 21st, 1993 episode of USWA Championship Wrestling, as we review it here on the 38th episode of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. And Dave and Corey, they kind of loosely run down what to expect today. And then after the break, as we've come to get accustomed to lately, Dave is standing in front of, let me say this, if you're watching the video podcast, the quality of this week's TV was kind of rough. So these clips and these screenshots I have leave a lot to be desired, but you get the gist here. Dave is standing in front of a green screen that says, "A Matter of Honor," and we see a picture of Lex Luger, an eagle, and Yokozuna. It looks like the eagle is about to eat Yokozuna. I don't know if that's by design or that was just purely coincidental. We'll talk more about this as the show goes on. And Dave pitches it to the Yokozuna camp, as he referred to it. And the Yokozuna camp would be Jim Cornette, Yokozuna, and Mr. Fuji standing in front of what is now famously the USWA WWF promo curtain, where most people do their promos for these shows. And Fuji says that they have hired Jim Cornette as their American spokesperson. Cornette proceeds to drop local town names, street names, restaurant names, anything he can to kind of personalize this local promo and let you know this ain't just some WWF promo. He's really coming to town. And he says, why wait for SummerSlam when Memphis can see the fight between Lex Luger and Yokozuna first? So, yes, if you'll remember back, folks, to the WWF in 1993, Lex Luger had left WCW. He joined the World Bodybuilding Federation. That didn't turn out near as good as you thought it would. And then he ended up in the WWF as the narcissist, Lex Luger, who we saw back around April. We saw him here in Memphis alongside Brian Krister. Burt Prentice was quite enthralled or inflamed or enthused. Engorged, I'm sure, with Lex Luger whenever he would take that jacket off. Well, that was a poor choice of words. Jacket off whenever you're talking about.
Oh, I couldn't imagine he would say
that. But anyway, so he was here earlier, but as of the 4th of July, Fuji and Yokozuna issued a body slam challenge on the deck of the USS Intrepid aircraft carrier. And there were wrestlers and other athletes and whatnot who all came and tried to body slam Big Yokozuna, and they all failed until, I don't know if you guys remember this, a freaking helicopter flew in. And out of that helicopter came the soon-to-be former narcissist Lex Luger. He's sporting a USA flag-style polo shirt, and he proceeded to body slam, or what many people refer to as hip throw, Yokozuna, in the most patriotic display on the WWF we had seen since Hulk Hogan beat the shit out of that Iraqi sympathizing asshole Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7 in Los Angeles. So, guys, what would be the obvious next step if you were a former narcissist turned American patriot who just body slammed a 600-pound Samoan sumo wrestler on the deck of a aircraft carrier? What would you do? If you wanted a shot at the WWF Championship, obviously you would paint a tour bus red, white, and blue. You'd call it the Lex Express, and you'd tour all over the country like you were campaigning for some sort of public office. And you know what? That is exactly what Lex Luger did. What do you guys remember about this era of 1993? Not just here in Memphis, but in the WWF with Lex Luger, the Patriot.
I was going to say, what would I do if I had just done that? I would almost bust my ass in those snakeskin cowboy boots. That ring when he body slammed Yokozuna was like the equivalent to the Memphis studio floor. He almost busted. He's like a Looney Tune. His legs, his feet were just churning, and he wasn't going anywhere. But yeah, that was a magical moment. Yeah. And in my mind, when I guess I was 11 years old at this point, I was, a Lex Luger hater because he had just turned heel and he was with Heenan and all that jazz. But yeah, when he did this, to me, I was like, oh my God. I looked at him as like the next Hogan or something. Like I was, oh shit, this is going to work. Because in my mind, Yokozuna was indestructible. That's the way they were building him at this point. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, he body slammed him. So yeah, I was super excited about the Lex Express and all that stuff.
I always felt bad for Yoko later on because I found out that they had decided to use a black canvas for the mat.
Yeah.
And on the aircraft carrier that made that ring like 3,000 degrees. Like they said that, and he was barefoot the whole time. So I'm sitting there going, oh man, that couldn't, but you could see it back when somebody mentioned it, when they body slam him and he hits that mat. That's why he gets up and rolls out real quick, because the mat was like hot as hell.
He rolled like Mario.
Yeah. But the thing I remember most about this was the sweet ass music video that they made for it. I still remember it. You always were there, always beside me, hero.
I love
holding my hand every step of the way.
Him and his shoot son were in that video.
Now it's time to keep our country strong.
I wonder if we'd get a copyright strike if we play that song at the end of the show. I want everybody to hear that at the end of stick around at the end of the show. We're going to roll the dice and probably play that song just so you can hear it, because That's a
So
pretty
awesome.
damn good rendition there from you guys.
Yeah.
It's a pretty badass song.
Dude, it had me totally hooked back then.
He'd go out and punch Native Americans, Japanese people. He didn't care. Josh was, I'm America. It's like,
Jeff Jarrett could have learned something about making patriotic videos from Lex Luger, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? But Josh, I'm glad to hear that this way of turning Lex Luger had the exact desired effect that they intended for it to have. Because when you're older and more cynical like we are these days, you're like, this dude was just the freaking narcissist. He's a heel. Then all of a sudden he shows up in a flag shirt and we're just supposed to be happy he body slammed him. But like as a little kid, little Josh is like, hell yeah, he body slammed me. And he's got to be a good dude. And so
the only thing he loves more than himself is his country, Gene.
That's right. And steroids. But other than that, it's country, himself, steroids.
American Anaballs. That's what I love.
So then the background on the green screen changes. We've been just using one static background of whatever the main theme was. But this week it changed next to USWA heavyweight title match, which confirms what you guys pointed out last week. Apparently, it's no longer the Southern heavyweight title. We've now quietly transitioned that title to the USWA heavyweight dinner platter.
Why wasn't that one as fancy as the first one?
It just we went bare minimum on that. I mean, look at this. I met Eagle is about to eat Yokozuna.
Right.
Luger's you can see it on Luger's face. He's debating like, should I warn Yokozuna this Eagle's going to eat him? He's like, nah, that's a matter of honor.
It's almost like the WWE paid for this graphic, and then the USWA had to pay for their own graphic.
It reminds me of when I was a kid and I'd make a project for the science fair and I'd show it with mine and it wouldn't look like this. It would look like the second one. And then I would set it right next to the first one and be like, I don't think I'm gonna win this one, Mom.
Your mom's like trying to come. Yeah, you might. You're still good.
Lawler's like, hey Vince, I can draw a background. I don't think so, pal. I'll send something from the art department. No, man, I do them every week. I know, pal. I've seen it. So yeah, we hear that Jeff will be getting a rematch with the Vampire Warrior for the USWA heavyweight title this week. So that's exciting, right?
Yeah.
So match number one, the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett taking on Mike Needham's favorite wrestler, The Shadow. So we're not leading into this week's match with a That's Fabulous video. And so the first time I watched this, I was pretty excited, but stick around, folks. We're just changing. We're not changing things completely. We're just rearranging the order of things. So never fear. It's going to get fabulous here in a little bit. But the match gets started. Jeff Jarrett throws around the Shadow a little bit, and then the Vampire Warrior and Luna Vachon hit the ring. They attack Jeff Jarrett. I feel like Richard kind of didn't appreciate the finishes we saw last week. So they're like, all right, well, let's get back to that formula that he was missing. Let's get back to these run-ins on every match. So here we are. Vampire Warrior and Luna have run in. They did change it up, though. It wasn't the typical run-in. This time they brought a baseball bat. Actually, probably a softball bat if they got it from Lawler.
Oh, yeah.
And for an awkwardly long time, they beat Jeff Jarrett with a baseball bat before Jerry Lawler finally realizes, shit, where's my softball bat? And he don't give a damn about saving Jeff Jarrett. He just don't want him to fuck up his softball bat because they got a game that afternoon, I'm sure. So he comes running out. And despite being despite the fact they outnumber the guy and they have a bat, Warrior and Luna run for their lives, despite the fact they're brandishing a weapon because it's the king, right?
Well, vampires are afraid of that far. Notoriously.
Yeah, clearly that one made of silver because he was hanging on it pretty good. Now we saw a very rare on-camera appearance by Jerry Jarrett here. This is the first on-screen sighting of Jerry Jarrett throughout 1993. We have not seen him here all year long. So that's how we knew Jeff was in some real peril here because Daddy had to come out here and make sure he was all right. And he didn't sound all right. Did you hear the sounds he was making as they went to commercial? Oh, I'm hurt. And Eddie Marlin was out there. So he had his grandpa and his dad and everybody's out there.
That is not fabulous.
It's so unfabulous.
But I mean, my thing was with the whole, why does the vampire have a bat anyways? You know what I mean? He can't go out and play softball or baseball. He's a vampire. He can't be out in the sun. Like he should have some other type of weapon.
He is clearly out in the sun, Richard Lee. You see that tan?
No, it can't be that way. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, why does he have a bat? Why couldn't they have given him anything? I guess vampire bat. I mean,
I get it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sure that was
that clever play.
I'm sure that was probably it. But I mean, still,
case.
I guess maybe I just went from hating it to liking it all of a sudden.
You just made it all make sense. So.
Yeah.
David Heath, the Riddler.
Yeah. Somewhere
it's a thinker, guys. Don't jump to conclusions. You got to think about it a little bit, and if you do, it'll make sense.
Mr. Heath at home is jumping out of his chair if he's hearing this. He's like, finally, somebody got it.
Like, Jesus Christ, 30 years before somebody finally pieced those two together.
But I
Jerry
mean,
Garrett was like, I just don't think they're going to get it, Dave. They will, man. Vampire bat. It's right in front of them. It's right in front of them. So we take a commercial break. We come back and we see a feature on the travels of the Lex Express and some of his interactions with the public, if you will. And then Burt Prentice, Luna, and the Vampire Warrior come out for a promo. And we're going to watch a little bit of this one. Burt comes in hot right out of the gate here. But I'll tell you who comes in hotter than Burt. Dave Brown ain't having this bullshit today, guys. They may have scared Lawler with a bat. Dave Brown don't give a fuck about the bat. Check out how this goes.
Ridiculous, Prentice and Ozzy. You know what I love? Did you know Jerry Garrett come out here to his little boy's side? Just said, I told you to leave us alone. I told you what's going to happen if you get chasing that belt. I told you what was going to happen if you kept hitting me week after week. I told you what was going to happen if you didn't leave the Vampire Warrior alone. I thought, Jerry Garrett, if you won't stick your nose in this, we got something for you, too. You just get out of here. That's what I'm sick of you. I'm sick of the baseball bat and the whole thing. Get out of here. Go away and don't bring them back out here today. Let's take a look at the fabulous one right now, as a matter of
I need that sound clip.
Y'all get out of here. Dave Brown.
I need that sound clip. Y'all get out of here. I don't care about this. I don't want to see y'all. I'm tired of the baseball bats.
So watching this back, I told Rich, I was like, is Burt wearing a hairnet? Like it looked like he had just got off the fryer, like at Arby's or whatever, to come to this promo, and his hair was just like, you could see it was almost contained.
I told Josh you look like a pissed off lunch lady.
You did.
You get 2 Salisbury patties, not 3.
Charge him extra.
He was jumping up and down, like almost running in place at a couple of points. Like he'd come out just fire. Like usually he works himself into a lather, but as my grandmother would have said, he was having a conniption fit right out of the gate here. And then Dave Brown wasn't having none of that shit today. Like Dave's like, you just take his shit, you just get your ass out of here. That was shades of Lance back in the day. That's like, oh, come on, Bert, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. And he did. They got all 3 of them, just took their baseball bat and they went on about their day. So kudos to Dave. I was like, yeah, freaking Dave is in Richard's head right now. He's thinking it, and they just made it happen.
I'm tired of the bat. I'm tired of you bastards. Just leave. I'm tired of all this.
All your riddles.
Just
get on out of here.
Credits. Roll the fucking credits.
Get your ass back in the kitchen and get over that deep fryer. Whatever cafeteria you came from, lunch lady. So of course, usually we have the That's Fabulous video, then the Jeff Jarrett match. But I guess for the sake of letting you beat up, we started with the match, and now we're circling to the Jeff Jarrett video. And so it's funny. This is kind of like the remix, I guess, because we get some, we get a shot of him looking lovingly at the building there. He's mentoring black children on how to play basketball. Which
I love how it's supposed to be the middle of August, so they're all wearing sweatshirts.
I'm sure actually they were probably mentoring him.
Yeah. So guys, how do you do them super cuts? Like, how you break ankles and such.
How do I get them and one videos? Like, them ain't happening yet, Jeff. And then this guy right here.
Now that's fabulous.
That is definitely fabulous. So what I did, so we made fun of it last week. The video was to Michael Jackson's If you want to be my baby, it don't matter if you're black or white. This week, we go with Garth Brooks' We Shall Be Free. And based on some of that video, I don't know what he's trying to say here. I'm scared to even speculate. But what I did is I chopped up the video. I took out all the Garth Brooks parts, and I just left him all the That's Fabulous parts. So let's take a look at this quick 30-second clip of this music video.
This is the game. This is his name. If he ain't fabulous, you're the blame. Now that's fabulous. Now that's fabulous. It's fabulous.
Put that fucking kid down.
When that man gonna come back with the flowery coat on again?
How big an asshole do he have to feel like standing in the middle of that school wearing his coat of many colors? This is fabulous.
Yeah.
And he just picks a child up who are all high school age, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just picked the Webster of the group. Like, hey, you got some kind of growth abnormality. Let me pick you up.
If I
You're
was
special. Let me make you feel special.
if I was a parent, I'd be like, well, I guess there wasn't no fucking math going on that day, was there?
I feel like the spelling of fabulous probably had to be corrected in post. Like I'm sure the first few tries they didn't get it right, and they're like, just make sure you do all the letters. We'll get them in the right order. Don't worry about it.
I didn't know what they were doing at first, and when they hit the FA, I got a little nervous. It's like, uh-oh, this is a public school.
This
They
is
saw
for
him
you,
in that
Bert.
coat, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna spell something out for you, Jeff." And they're like, hey, that's not fabulous. That is.
I know how
not-
to spell it because it's
not
scribbled
cool
on all the
either.
bathrooms here.
He is like, "Hey, you don't like it? Get out my school."
Do we know what
So,
school that was?
And we
Treadwell.
don't actually.
Was it Treadwell?
Oh,
High?
I don't know.
Oh,
I mean, considering their attachment to Lawler and Jimmy Hart, we can only assume they've got an N with Treadwell School, but we don't know that to be a fact.
so Jeff Jarrett's now fabulously fighting for civil rights, right? Is that what we're getting at?
It seems to be the implication, is
Okay.
all I'm saying. The "We Shall Be Free" part of it was just like, so they're not free, Jeff. You were there to break the chains, and
I mean,
it's free.
I honestly thought when that song came out when I was in like third grade that it was kind of a douchey song for Garth Brooks to be singing, but let alone put it against a music video for Jeff Jarrett.
But I
It
mean,
just
based on the
seems-
black or white thing last week, and then this week, clearly Jerry Jarrett had he's like, we need to get you over with, the
blacks.
the blacks. And you still call them colors? I don't know. Sputnik used to let me call them that. But it's just so weird. Like, what does any of this have to do with his feud with Vampire Warrior or wrestling or any of it? But he's clearly has an agenda here. That he's going to end racism in Memphis, which was a tall order in 1993. Probably taller in 2025.
So what's next? What's the next music video if we're guessing? Is it going to be Ebony and Ivory, or is it going to be like, is he going to do Bone Thugs and Harmony? Gangsta Lean. Which one?
That's not Bone Thugs and Harmony.
No, that was either way, it doesn't matter.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yeah, which one's it going to be? Real Compton City G's.
Well, I think they're going in another direction. Like it'll be some "We Shall Overcome" or something.
Yeah.
We're going to swerve them. It's going to be David Allen Coe.
Oh man.
The heel turn.
Yeah. He's like blocking shots and spiking the kid he picks up in the gym.
You are so not fabulous. You
Next
need
week
to
they're
just
gonna play "If That Ain't Country" during his song.
Yeah.
sell your seekers, kid. You ain't gonna be shit.
Oh boy. So then we go to highlights of last week's mixed tag team match where Chris Adams teamed up with Miss Texas against Brian Christopher and Miss Simpson, or as Brian says, Mrs. Simpson. And I'm ashamed that we missed the joke last week that Brian had better hope that Mr. Simpson wasn't OJ, since Tony Adams did seem to fit his type, so to speak. But anyway, it was a fun clip of the match, and we saw some of the things we thought we would see in that clip. I didn't clip it because the video quality is so crappy this week. I'm not doing a lot of video clips because, as you can see, they look and sound pretty horrendous. But anyway, in the end, Brian Christopher held Adams, asked Miss Simpson to hit him. She wouldn't. She jumped out of the ring and refused. So Brian went out after her. And while Brian was berating her at ringside, Chris Adams caved the back of Brian's head in with a freaking super kick. Then he followed up with another super kick to Brian's face. And then Adams threw his wife/ex-wife/ whatever she is to him over his shoulder and seemingly kidnapped her as he left the ringside with her. And we haven't seen her since, allegedly. So then Brian comes out. He cuts an angry promo about what happened last week. Whoever wins between himself and Chris Adams, well, that will be who Miss Simpson stays with for good. So apparently USWA managed to sign a contract to where her ownership will be passed from him.
She is not free.
Some shall be free, but not you, Mrs. Simpson. You will never be free. Especially not free of marks on your face. But match number 2, Brian Christopher versus Clyde Coleman. Now, either Brian just really wanted to get over the intensity of this feud with Chris Adams, or else Clyde Coleman pissed on his shoes at the urinal, because this was an intense beating from Brian that more resembled a Stan Hansen match than a Brian Christopher match. He even powerbombed the guy at one point. I've never seen Brian Christopher do a powerbomb in my life.
And it was so casual as well. He just like did it, it was like the 4th move of the match. It just, motherfucker, bam! Like, it was great.
Vader time, bitch.
Dude, and that's why Brian was so good, man, is because this is like he's trying to get over the intensity of this moment, and he goes into the ring like a madman. And usually people have trouble connecting those. You got to keep the same energy as the kids say there, Gene. And he did that. Where a lot of guys, you may be one way in a promo and then they'll go out and it doesn't translate in the match. He carried that over, and it was so intense. We haven't seen Brian like this year in terms of the intensity, but it played so well with the promo for the situation that's going on. It really, really sold the moment.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, guys, a lot of times will go over there and they'll cut this, really heated promo, and then they'll saunter over the ring and they'll circle the guy and they'll jaw with the crowd and they'll lock up and do an arm drag, and it's just another wrestling match. Or they'll cut a heated promo about how they're going to beat the hell out of somebody and burn them, and then they'll come back out and talk about softball.
Right.
But Brian cut a heated promo, and then he proceeded to beat the shit out of the next guy he saw. So to your point, yes, that was excellent. And I really do, in my mind, believe after this segment that Brian is legitimately pissed that Chris Adams came and stole his girlfriend, and that he's really looking to fight Chris Adams. I don't know if he's more mad that Chris Adams stole Mrs. Simpson, or if he's mad because he got his brain caved in by that freaking super kick to the back of his head. But either way, he's pissed, right?
That super kick, the second one specifically, I love the way Chris Adams. It's a shoot super kick, like whatever, a side kick, whatever you call that kick, because he was very well versed in the martial arts world before he came to the wrestling world, and it is a textbook awesome kick. Like I love the way he does it, and it looks legit when he does it, because it probably is.
I'm gonna say we have a deeper thing going on here that you guys haven't thought of. Who was it that Chris Adams super kicked the shit out of 3 weeks ago in a match?
Mr. Clyde.
Mr. Clyde, who is friends or has been friends with Brian Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Who was it that Brian Christopher beat the shit out of this week?
Clyde Coleman.
Clyde.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
He could be friends with Chris Adams. So
Oh,
it's
the
a
two
Clyde for a
Clydes.
Clyde.
Clyde
shit.
for a Clyde.
Richard is our deep an analyst here on the show now. I mean, you just put together the vampire and bat connection with David Heath. You just connected the Clydes, and it was right in front of us, Josh. I mean, this feels like a scene from freaking Usual Suspects or something.
Well,
Well, it was
the
right in front of
problem-
our face and we missed it.
The problem is, Gene, we didn't drop a hit of acid before the show. He did. He's on another level.
Well, y'all are bleeding out of the veins in your forehead. I figured you needed some help here.
I mean, I assumed he did. It is Sunday morning, but I didn't want to say anything on the air.
Clyde for a Clyde.
I love
Clyde for a Clyde.
That's going to be on the teleprompter next week.
I hope so.
Or that day.
Picture Clyde Coleman on the side, picture Mr. Clyde on the other. A Clyde for a Clyde.
And they both got bruised up and beaten up faces.
it. Jerry Jarrett comes out as the attorney. So what we have here is a tale of two Clydes. We're going to go through it.
Both of them look like they've been in a car with Eddie Marlin.
We put Miss Simpson in a protection program from you guys, but the winner will get both Clydes this week in the rematch. Do with what you will.
They will assist Miss Simpson.
They shall not be free. Garth.
Either that or we're going to pair them up with a spellbinder and call their team the Clydesdales.
I like that, brother.
I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed.
Oh, Richard, you ruined it. You ruined it. The whole Clyde theory's gone now.
The Clydesdale.
All right. On that note,
sorry.
let's take our first podcast commercial break and see if Richard's acid will calm down a little bit here, and we'll get this train back on the tracks here in just one moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
So as we come back from the break, Dave is once again standing in front of the green screen, except this time it has a graphic of what some people in Alabama call an ambulance. And he lets us know that there will be a stretcher match this Monday night between Jerry the King Lawler and referee Paul Neighbors. Okay. Now, last week when we talked about, the main event of last Monday night show, the Harts defeated Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett, and Bret Hart pinned Jerry Lawler. And so we don't see the ending. We don't see what exactly led to Lawler getting pinned, but we did see there was a whole heap of fuckery from Paul Neighbors throughout this match. Like I said, the video quality is kind of rough this week, so I didn't make a clip of the match, but it's, typical Paul Neighbors shenanigans. He's pulling Lawler out by his hair because he didn't see the tag, and letting Bret know and switch in and out and get heat. So good stuff. So So then, after that clip, let's check out a promo. Now I know the video quality is kind of rough, but I did want to check out the promo. Actually, you know what? I think we do have a little clip of the match. Let's take a look and see how this, if it's watchable here. My favorite part of that clip is both Harts are choking Jeff in the corner, and Burke's just pulling on his leg from the floor. Like, it really wasn't doing anything constructive, but it was just annoying at best, I'm sure. So Dave Brown runs down the card, and Eddie Marlin comes out and lets Dave know that he's not sure if Jeff will be able to wrestle or not. It'll depend on how his ribs are. So fingers crossed, guys. Let's hope the Fabulous One is going to be able to be there Monday night.
I will say the one thing we did skip, if somebody's watching this back, is the fact that after the We Shall Be Free video played, they immediately, as soon as it cut off, they cut to a clip that whatever the commercial music is, and it's just Vampire Warrior beating the shit out of Jeff Jarrett, which made me laugh so hard. It was like they were like Vampire Warrior was so against civil rights that he was just like, "No, we will not be free. I'm going to murder you."
Well, you know them vampires. They're not a fan of civil rights.
Stuck in them old ways.
So I got ahead of myself there. We'll get to Paul Neighbors' promo here in a little bit, but I kind of jumped ahead of some things. Next, we hear from Jerry Lawler. He points out that Memphis is getting the SummerSlam main event a week early than everyone else. He mentions that handsome Jimmy Valiant is coming back. Then he plugs the stretcher match with Paul Neighbors and promises that if Neighbors doesn't leave in an ambulance, he will refund everyone's ticket money in the Coliseum. And he also teases there'll be another surprise, but that'll get announced later on. Now, we've gone to this well, not a lot in Memphis, but if you remember back to the famous steel cage match, Austin Idol versus Jerry Lawler in a hair match in 1987. Lawler had been in all these hair matches over the years. He's never lost his hair. Pretty much people had resigned themselves to the fact that Jerry Lawler's never going to lose a hair match. So Austin Idol makes the bold statement that if he did not win and cut Jerry Lawler's hair on Monday night, he would refund the ticket money of each and every person in the Coliseum. And that Monday night, they drew more people than they had in years. I don't think it was a legitimate sellout, but it was pretty darn close. And I don't know if we've really went to that well since 87. I'm sure they had probably pulled it out maybe once or twice on some random things.
I think he capped the fundage though. He was like, up to $50,000, darling. He's made that specific. Yeah. Like, so if it draws more than 50 grand, I'll refund it up to this point, darling.
Which made it even a little more believable because it's like he was giving himself a net. Like, I'm only going to have 50 grand on me. So if it's more than that,
I can fit in my suitcase, darling.
The rest is on Eddie Marlin, I guess. But so I wonder what this big surprise we're going to hear about later is, guys. We'll find out. We cut to Corey, and then keep in mind, folks, Lawler and Dave are in front of the green screen that we've kind of established just through the camera passing by is on the opposite side of the studio from where the desk is. So Dave's standing there with Lawler. We cut to Corey for just a few seconds. Then we cut back to Dave, who has now been joined by Paul Neighbors over in front of the same green screen. So him and Lawler would have probably almost passed each other there. And so now let's hear from, I would say in Memphis right now, the queen of promos is Miss Texas, and the king of promos is referee Paul Neighbors. So please forgive the video quality, but I thought, hey, we need to hear this is going to be the biggest match of Paul Neighbors' life for a couple of reasons. So let's check out this promo and see what referee Paul Neighbors has to say about his big ambulance match stretcher match rather against Jerry Lawler this Monday night.
Here comes Paul right here, as a matter of fact. Yeah, you see that? You see that? The King is guaranteed you're going to leave in one of those, Paul Neighbors.
I love that. Let me tell you something. I know what's going on there. That Eddie Marlin doesn't have any respect for me. He hates me. But Monday night, he will have some respect after Monday night, because not one of the biggest names in professional wrestling, but the biggest name in professional wrestling, one of my best friends, is going to be in my corner, and that is Vince McMahon will be in my corner, and I have made him a promise that I won't lose that match. So that's one thing means, Jerry Lawler, you're going out on a stretcher, you understand?
You've spoiled the announcement here. You're going to have Vince McMahon in your corner.
Vince McMahon will be in my corner.
Well,
y'all didn't realize how close to me and him were, did you?
he's right. Eddie Marlin has told me Vince McMahon is, in fact, going to be in Paul Neighbors' corner for this match, which is coming up. It is a stretcher match with Vince McMahon.
You know who's going to ride in this?
We're
It ain't going to be this.
We're going to find out. We're going to take a break right now. We're going to be right. You're awful smug.
So we haven't perfected this green screen shit yet, as Paul Neighbors spends half the promo out of frame.
That's what I told Richard whenever you cut to the video. I said I was giggling because it said we were joined by Paul Neighbors on the green screen, but this motherfucker was like half-ass not in the shot the whole time. I thought that was hilarious. He desperately wanted that ambulance to be in the screen, like in the shot. And Dave tried to give him the Iggy backing up, and then his arm got tired, so he just went forward again.
I mean, it's partially Dave's fault because Dave went to him with the microphone.
Yeah.
And if Dave would have stayed over there and been like, come here, and he would have had to come to Dave to talk. But he started talking over there away from the mic, and instead of calling him over, Dave just goes to him with the mic. So it's, in the end, it's Paul Neighbors' fault. But if Dave would have been like, no, dummy, come over here. But anyway, we spend half the promo with him outside, halfway out of the frame, and eventually somebody's like, get over. Here's the big question I have. I want to see what your opinions are on this. Do you think, did Neighbors really accidentally spoil the announcement and he wasn't supposed to say it yet, or was that just part of the shtick here? Because looking at Dave's face, I could have swore he almost mouthed fuck whenever he said it. Dave's like, you spoiled the announcement, douchebag. Like he looked legitimately like annoyed that he said that.
Yeah, watching this back, I looked over at Richard. I said, when he says McMahon, it looked like Dave smelt a fart. He was, oh, come on, saying that name. Yeah, I think legit Paul probably, wasn't supposed to let it out then, and then maybe Dave was going to let it out. Well, let's tell him everything about it or something. And
I think he was supposed to come out in that video where they showed Lawler with Vince on the King's Court, because it kind of comes up conversationally there when he's like, I'm going to refund the money, everybody. And Vince is like, well, pal, I think I'll buy a ticket and come down there and you'll have to refund my money when that referee doesn't go out on Amazon. So I think that was supposed to be where the announcement happens. And so Neighbors, shoots his wad earlier, and Dave has to go ahead and acknowledge it. But I think that seemed to be probably the plan, because we were teasing that video that's coming up later, and then Neighbors just wanted to be able a chance to be like, Vince McMahon's my best friend.
Yeah.
Picture him and Vince out there fishing, as we'll get a little look at here later.
And I imagine they are really friends, because you think about all the older people that was friends with him. What did they call him? McMahon. Gerald Briscoe, Pat Patterson, all of them called him McMahon.
Mr. McMahon.
Yeah. So I can't imagine how much fecal matter was cleaned out of that basement that week.
McMahon circle.
Yep.
So we take another break, and then Dave is joined by Miss Tony Simpson Adams, who is distraught. She says she doesn't know what to do. Whatever she does, she doesn't have a future in acting. That's for damn sure. Wow. It's fucking rough. Then Brian comes out, and he yells at her to tell everyone how much he hates Chris Adams. She's grabbing her head like it's literally fixing to explode, but instead Adams comes flying into the frame from out of nowhere and blasts Brian, and then proceeds to ram him into the ring post. And then he takes him on an ass-kicking tour of ringside, including punches, 2 more trips into the ring post. Then he tosses him into the ring. He hits him with a super kick, which led to a big pull apart, or more of a pull Adams off of Brian Christopher. Now, Josh, something happened here that proved another one of your theories. We have definitely neutered and domesticated the Moondogs. The Moondogs are out here assisting in a freaking pull apart.
Right.
What the?
How do you contain a Moondog? How do you clip his nuts? You clip his nuts. That's the only way that this is happening. I guarantee you they wouldn't be doing that pull apart if Larry Latham was here. Guarantee you. Who's that guy? Who's he helping pull off?
Before he went and left a voicemail, he was out there trying to get these Moondogs to pull apart this fight out there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we've always, for years and years and years, forever and ever, amen, we have painted the Moondogs as uncontrollable, just wild men. And then you pointed out last week that, Richard Lee's able to get the chairs and shit away from them to where they have somewhat of a semblance of a wrestling match now. They're getting nets thrown over them and they don't know what to do about it. And now they're out here assisting in a pull apart. Just when I saw them out there, I was like, you got to be. I immediately grabbed my phone and started texting y'all. I'm like, I believe this shit.
I'm almost going back to your other co-host. Who do I blame? You know what I mean? I think more or less it's, when did this happen? I blame, well, I know we all know when because we've covered it, but I blame Domino's Pizza. It's when that sponsorship happened that all this Moondog shit fell apart.
The Noid. We saw them hanging out with the Noid. Now, the old Moondogs would have beat the Noid's ass with a chair, but they were out there hanging out with him as Richard Lee promoted Domino's Pizza, and they're just kind of standing around with the Noid. So, much like Richard, I think you've cracked another case here. We've gotten to the bottom of it. It's Domino's Pizza's fault that our Moondogs are now neutered and domesticated and no longer effective.
So fucking corporate America, man.
So we've seen them now decide that, hey, this fight is way too extreme. We got to go out there and break it up. Are we like a week away before they're making like serious like Mike Spills where they're like, look, guys, I come out here and barked for years. And then I realized, what am I barking for? Are they going to be like that?
They're going to be with Sting on CBC doing a testimony with their hair combed back and shit. So,
we barked.
Dave, I came home from work one day and my wife, Sally, was like, Larry. Yeah, that's right. It's not Spot. Name's Larry. I just don't. I don't like people seeing you out on TV barking like a dog and assuming that I have to, put down puppy pads in the house for you to piss on. Can you at least not act like a freaking dog on television anymore? And by God, I decided I'm not going to do it anymore. Yeah. If we jumped ahead a few more years in the 90s when we were trying to play these reality angles, that's definitely what we would have got. We would have got you remember the famous John Tenta promo in WCW? I'm not a shark. I'm a man.
And see, we are not too far removed at this point from as far as I knew, the first look at where the Moondogs lived. Do you remember back right before right in the beginning of the Lawler and Jarrett and Moondogs feud of 92, whenever Richard Lee did that famous promo, like in the Moondogs house where they're just destroying that house, and supposedly that's where they lived, or what? It was primitive as fuck. Like it was just abandoned house somewhere, but that's where I believe the Moondogs lived at that point. And now, like you're talking about, they're signing autographs at Domino's and fucking Tupelo and shit. Like It's really weird.
Come to think of it, we're not moon dogs, we're moon men.
Next week, Spike's going to come out wearing a work shirt from his transmission shop that says Bill. I'm not a moon dog. I'm Bill Smithson of Bill's Transmission and More down on West 31st Street.
Let me
Not
ask
only,
you. Hey, do you not think a moon dog has bills? Still got to keep the lights on.
if you come in next week and bark, I'll service your transmission for $15 off.
Hit my manager with a chair and an extra 15 will be applied.
Richard Lee will be happy to write up the service ticket when you get there, and he'll sing you a song while you wait.
Come on in and get you a slice of pizza, brother. Get your car worked on.
You put your name on this paper right here. You sign the dotted line, Burt. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoa. I fall into the wrestling promos sometimes. I've been hit. I'm sorry about that.
Wouldn't it be hilarious?
Just fix the freaking car, you weirdo.
Would it be hilarious?
Smell of the back.
What's that stain in the seat, brother? That don't look like it's very Christian-like. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't it be hilarious if the whole time they're working on the car, their shirts are off and they're barking, and they're like, instead of using tools, they're just hitting it with boards and shit.
Wearing those same freaking cut off pants. And
Gonna have a moondog alignment.
that would be a great commercial if he'd have done a commercial for his because they said he legit owned, Bill Smithson owned a transmission shop in Nashville. If they'd have done like Moondog's transmission service, and you know, you drive up and they just start beating on it with a board. And they said Richard Lee did work at his transmission shop legitimately at one point. Like he was like the service. Like I sound like I was making that up, but I don't know how true that is. But I have been told that literally he was like the service writer there, and you would pull up and Richard Lee would write up your ticket, and Moondog Spot go, what's shifting rough? What's going on?
Let's take it down the road a piece.
At what speed you got to get up to before it starts cutting up? We'll run down here to Crystal and get a few hamburgers, and we'll see what it does. Dude, I didn't know you could talk. Of course I can talk, motherfucker. You think I'm really a dog? Come on. Wrestling. Shit ain't real.
I'll hit you with a board.
Exposed a long time ago. Sports entertainment.
You got a joint, do you?
We get this transmission running. Can you give us a ride to the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis? Work them damn dog catchers tonight. Ironically, my transmission's out. I just ain't had time to fix it. So next up, we'll see a King's Court segment that was shot at a WWF TV taping where Vince McMahon joins Jerry Lawler as his guest, and they use this segment to put over not only Lawler versus Brett at SummerSlam. They talk about Brett pinning Lawler in the tag team match. And then they allude to this upcoming match with a referee. If you notice, they never named the referee. They just said he's going to have a match with the referee. Talk about the ambulance stipulation. And then Vince announces that he's going to come buy a ticket so that Lawler will have to refund his money. And this was kind of fun because this is literally our earliest hint of the future Mr. McMahon right here. Mm-hmm. This promo is the first heel McMahon promo. We'll see him sending more of these in throughout, like 94 is when he really has a stretch there where he's sending them just about every week. But this Monday night, Vince McMahon is going to be in the corner of referee Paul Neighbors. Like that I remember at the time thinking that just seems so surreal. And even now, with everything that's happened in 2025 in wrestling and outside of wrestling for Vince McMahon, it still just seems completely absurd to think that, number one, Jerry Lawler was wrestling referee Paul Neighbors in a stretcher match, and the WWF owner and chairman Vince McMahon was in his corner to bear witness to it. Now, spoiler, not really a spoiler, but just insight. The real reason Vince McMahon was coming to Memphis was not to watch Jerry Lawler wrestle a referee and get his money back if he lost. It's because he wanted to personally see Yokozuna versus Lex Luger happen in the ring before SummerSlam to see what he actually had for his SummerSlam main event. And Lawler and Jerry Jarrett just, was able to bear the rewards of that and have them on the card. And when we get to this week's card, we'll see how it pays off for them. So then we get another promo from Jerry Lawler in the studio, and then we see a video of handsome Jimmy Valiant with clips from like the 70s, early 80s. It was not an updated video of handsome Jimmy. And then after the break, not only do we see a replay of the attack on Jeff Jarrett, we basically see the whole match over again. Like we start before ringing. Clearly, we got some time to fill here. We see the bell ring. They see what semblance of a match they had, and then we see the attack by Vampire Warrior and Luna Vachon.
Yeah, I had to pause it and do a time check. I'm like, did I click fast forward or to another show or something? It just seemed really odd that they played the entire thing all over again. Now, which usually they like currently they would do something like that on WWE, but that was very foreign at the time. This time for USWA to do something like that,
and they had the clips. They'd already used it like 20 minutes ago after the Jeff Jarrett promo, so they had the clips of it.
Yeah. So yeah, I was the same way. I was fast forwarding through the commercial, and then I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? Like this match I already saw this match, and then because some of these videos where I got these from are kind of iffy, like the editing on some of them are kind of iffy. So I thought maybe it had gotten screwed up and restarted or some shit. But no, we're just replaying the whole thing because we need to fill time because apparently a bunch of WWF superstars didn't send in promos of, giving their predictions on Jerry Lawler versus referee Paul Neighbor. Mr. Fuji went, oh, boy, Paul Neighbor's you in big trouble now. I'm not talking about that. Who the hell's Paul Neighbor? Like he's a referee.
What's so crazy about this whole thing is, in order to believe that Jerry Lawler is a good guy here and for the Memphis people, a good guy in WWE, we have to not be familiar with WWE, really. They're hoping that we're not familiar. But we're building a main event Monday night around a WWE main event. It's like, and then the very guy that was like, the Hearts are in trouble because Jerry Lawler's coming for him, is now the bad guy manager coming in, and we all have to believe. Like it's so confusing if you're supposed to believe one way.
We're banking on everybody knowing and being familiar with the WWF product, on that being the reason this stuff's going to draw. But then we're also banking on them not being familiar enough to realize that Lawler's a shit heel up there to not be able to shut our mind off to that. So yeah to your point, we're going in a bunch of different directions here. So we got a new Jennifer on the Road segment. I didn't even think we were still doing these. I mean, the last time we saw her was when she was in the gym with Brian, right? When everybody got uncomfortable and
God, that was rough.
See it again.
It was so bad they couldn't do it for like 2 weeks.
I missed it. I must have been out of that.
Yeah, you were rough. I think you were out on the cruise at the time. But yeah, both BT and Josh were both kind of shell shocked by it and disturbed. So you might want to go back and find that. Brian was in rare form there. So the joke in this one, she has gone fishing with Paul Neighbors, and Paul is catching all these little tiny fish, and he's putting them in the bucket and keeping them. And eventually we build towards Jennifer sneaking over, and she dumps the bucket of fish back into the lake, and Paul flips out, and we can only assume that after the camera goes off, that Jennifer ended up in his shed of nightmares and will probably never be heard. This will probably be the last Jennifer on the Road.
Well, she was running from Paul, and she had a good lead on him. So I feel like over time, Jennifer's in shape enough to where if she just set a good pace, Paul's eventually given out.
You've seen those movies, she tripped.
I'm just gonna say this: Paul don't have all those notches on his wall because he's fast.
Joke's on you, bitch! I got a 4-wheeler right here. I'm gonna catch you.
There's another Neighbors, just like the like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Out and clock her in the head, drag her back to the house.
Yeah, eventually she's going to go to another house, which she perceives to be safe, and it's just a neighbor, and it's really like a cousin, and they chain her up and take her back to Paul's shed. Yeah, I can see that.
Run as fast as you want to. You ain't outrunning this 60 feet per second blow dart gun I got.
Dr. Frank opens the door and she's like, oh no. And that's it. And then next week they're like, hey, have you seen Jennifer? Jennifer who? I don't know what you're talking about. I was fishing by myself. So next up, we see a clip of the dog catchers beating the Moondogs for the USWA tag team titles. And of course, it relied heavily on some heel referee shenanigans from Paul Neighbors. And honestly, looking at them here, I don't think the guys in this video who won the belts are the same two dog catchers that ran in on TV a couple weeks ago.
No.
I'm damn near positive of it. These guys look like they could actually be Jeff Swords and Doug Vine, or Jeff Sword and Doug Vines here. I mean, who knows? But size-wise, they look like that could be who these guys are. So I'm wondering if they had intentions of bringing them in. They couldn't get the TV that day, so we just had some stand-in outlaw guys go in and throw a net over them.
Yeah,
because you haven't seen them in the studio since up till now.
Substitute dog catchers.
Yeah, we'll be stand-in dog catchers.
Yeah, Jeff Sword and Doug Vines, they were usually seen as like on WCW, from my memory, doing jobs. But like we all know that even back then, people doing jobs on WCW were making what, $250, $300 a night probably. They were making good money for the time. So I could see them saying, "Yeah, we'll do it, but we ain't doing it this week, brother."
Got to lose to the Buff and Patriot and Worldwide.
Oh, yeah. Stars and Stripes are going over, pal. Yeah, I mean, those guys have been around forever, back to like the ICW PAFO days. And by this point, yeah, they were doing jobs for WCW and wherever they could get them. And next up, we see, so, all right, I'm interested to see what you guys say about this, unless you fast forwarded past it. So match number 3, the Chiron comes up and it says the Moondogs with Richard Lee versus Spike Lewis, which they wrestled last week, and Mark K. Fabian. And there doesn't appear to be anyone in the ring. I rolled my eyes. As soon as I see that name, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? And then the Moondogs are attacked from behind by the dog catchers, who are now sporting Rent-A-Cop security guard uniforms, because I guess that's what we think dog catchers would wear. I don't know. And these might not even be the same guys we saw in the video from last. It may be different dog catchers every time they come. Like, they may just recruit dog catchers on a per show basis. Like, hey, Lawler, who's going to be the dog catcher tonight? I don't know. Who's got a mask? Because, Memphis will do that kind of shit. Just whoever's got a mask in their bag. We got the two Rent-A-Cops that they're wanting to be security here at the studio. Like, they got security guard outfits. Fuck, let them be dog catchers. Put these masks
Get Big Ernie and the other guy. Well, Big Ernie's never mind.
Yeah. We're not getting at this point. We're not getting Big Ern. He has moved on. But all right. So there was our Moondog spotting of the week. No pun intended, not spot. But what did you think of it when you saw the name Mark K. Fabian on the screen?
I missed it.
You think they actually gave a guy that name? That's what I figured. I was like, it's Richard fast forward. Josh might have saw it.
Well, I just figured like some wise ass was running the Chiron that day. Or they said, "What's your name?" And he was just a smart ass. And he said, it doesn't matter what my name is. I'm going to be something else tomorrow night in Tupelo or wherever.
I feel like Brian would have been the one like, call him Mark K. Fabian. I don't give a shit. I'll put that on the screen.
Right. He's going to be a dog catcher next week when they don't show up. Look.
So, and just in case, we got a screenshot there of that's what it looked like there on the screen. Because my first thought is, like, God, Spike Lewis is going to get beat up by these guys again, because like Spike gave like a brutal body slam to Spike Lewis last week. Like, the way he threw him was like really awkward. And I'm like, man, I'm sure this dude ain't. And then by the time I got to the next name, I'm like, wait a damn minute. And then they're getting jumped by the dog catchers.
Some would say Spike spiked Spike.
He certainly did. That's not easy for you to say, but you got it done, and I appreciate that. So let's take our second and final podcast commercial break, and then we'll find out what the card is going to be for this big event on Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puroresu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
All right, folks, let's take a look at the card for Monday night. This big event being headlined by a SummerSlam main event right here in little old Memphis.
Tonight, American Eagles go against the Hawks and Leon Downs. You follow that with Luna Vachon against Miss Texas. Yeah. Then Colin Scott, the Australian rugby player who also played in the NFL. We've had him here on USWA Championship Wrestling on TV before. He'll be going against the legend, Tony Falk. Last time around, Colin didn't have very good luck against the legend. Maybe it'll be different this time. The Burt Prentice concert. Boy, I almost hate to mention that to folks because but, well, anyway. Enough said about the Burt Prentice concert. The USWA tag titles will be on the line then. The dog catchers have the belts. Burt Prentice will be in their corner. The dog catchers will be putting the belts on the line, though, against the Moondogs and Richard Lee, the former champions, who will be trying to take the belts back. Then, to be or not to be. Miss Simpson, Tony Adams says she will leave with the winner of the match. Chris Adams, Brian Christopher, against handsome Jimmy Valiant. Yeah, bring him in here out of New York City, the boy from New York City. And he's going to have as his partner Mario.
Yeah, good team should be in there.
Should be indeed. A nice tag team action coming up. Then the USWA heavyweight title is at stake. The Vampire Warrior. And I have no doubt that that entire thing was orchestrated by Burt Prentice as Luna Vachon brought the aluminum baseball bat in.
That is ridiculous, isn't it?
And then Vampire Warrior just smashed Jeff, and after watching that videotape, you could see it just smashed him right across the ribs, not once, but 2 or 3 times. So Jeff, with I think a disadvantage going into that one, but he'll try to win that title. Stretcher match then. The King says referee Paul Neighbors is going to be hauled out in an ambulance. Vince McMahon will be the second in Paul Neighbors' corner, and then it'll be the matter of honor. Yokozuna with Mr. Fuji in his corner, going against Lex Luger. It all happened Monday night.
So this happened last time he was here, and they showed it at the beginning of the show, and then they fixed it by the end. But the same people who were able to properly spell the name Mark K. Fabian spell it Lex Luger. They put an A in his name instead of an E. And I remember us pointing it out the other time that he was here, and the first time they showed the rundown, it said Lugar. And he must have said something to him, because the second time they showed it, they had fixed it. But this time it's back to Lex Luger. And another thing that stands out to me is, even though it's spelled right on the screen, Dave Brown pronounces Yokozuna Yokozuno.
Yeah.
Like there's an O on the end of it. I don't know why, but that really bugs me.
Can you imagine if Lex Luger would have been AR instead of ER? Like, it would have been, because you give some of that Lex Luger sugar.
Lugar sugar.
The other thing that stood out to me about that is those two pictures side by side. The Vampire Warrior is 10 shades darker than Jeff Jarrett.
That when they showed that picture,
Yeah.
I said to Richard just now, I was like, "Ooh, that's a tan vampire."
Was it a rule that if you were main eventing in Memphis, like at this time, you had to go to Olin Mills to get your yearbook photo shot?
Apparently so. It's funny because some of them look like a glamour shot or something, and then others look like they got surprised with a Polaroid when they turn the corner because they'll be like, and they'll put that up there, and it's not like a bushwhacker or something. It's
Right.
just, some random guy. And then sometimes they don't even have that. It's just the name up there,
That picture of his name just the referee.
Paul Neighbors.
Paul Neighbors. I don't know why my brain just went crazy. The referee's Paul Neighbors picture looked like they took it from him looking up from like the dungeon of doom that they just put him in. Like he had just put
I'm gonna shut the door now.
Don't scream, nobody's coming.
You ain't seen nothing, trust me.
Watch your fingers.
But yeah, those pictures are always so random. Because I remember like the first time Owen Hart came, there was like a picture of him standing in front of like wood paneling from like the 70s. It looked like it was like an old picture of Owen Hart. But then the other pictures looked like you say, like it was professionally shot. So it's really odd.
It's like, do you have any promo pictures? Well, I have a Christmas picture from 1964.
That'll work.
Send it.
I got my yearbook photo. Yeah, that's all you got. I mean, you're not wearing like a cap and gown. Or no, I didn't graduate. I was just, okay.
Just take one wherever you are right now with the Polaroid. All right.
It's going to take these days when people could use their cell phone. You get all kinds of weird pictures.
It's going to take me about 3 weeks to get the film back. Well, damn.
Hey, on that note, I have seen legit, like, for a poster, motherfuckers with a selfie in their bathroom. Like, and you'll see the mirror, their toothpaste and shit, and they're trying to convince you to come to this little convention center, to watch this guy main event.
They shot in their car, like, because you can see the seatbelt on the other side of the picture and shit. Where they clearly the promoter's like, "Hey, send me a picture of the poster," and they just literally took their phone and shoot, and then send, and there they are driving to work.
Still got their Walmart name tag on.
Yeah, it's not the same name they wrestle under.
Right. Man.
Why don't you crop out where it says Clarence on there? Stevie Idol.
I'm gonna whoop somebody's ass on Friday, but come on down that Saturday morning, get you some tires. I'm the manager down there.
Tell him I sent you. So, all right, guys, it's that time. We're going to answer those questions that I ask you every week. So, for this week's show, what was your least favorite part of the show?
Moondogs. You were right. I fast forwarded through all of that and had no clue that even happened because I was like, nope, because I have seen this. And now we're seeing a more watered down version of what this is supposed to be. And I didn't even like the full version. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not going to like it when it's got 10 gallons of water poured on it. So no, Moondogs hated it. Could not stand it.
So my least favorite part is kind of attached to my favorite part, but psychologically it's fucked up.
God, I know that feeling.
We spent the whole year, essentially, whenever WWF was brought up, as they are the enemy, our product is superior, this is what it is, and they are the enemy. And now, just out of nowhere, we went from Brett and his brother versus Lawler, USWA versus WWF. And a week later, they're going to have a main event after our main event.
Yeah.
There's no explanation. There's no reason. There's nothing behind it other than this is happening. And we have spent all of this time painting them as the enemy. So it doesn't make sense to me. Although I like it, I would love to see the match live. It didn't make sense to me then. Why are you showcasing the enemy on your own turf?
Well, and we're also assuming that everybody in Memphis watches the WWF because, yes, we did show one clip of the Lex Express tour. We didn't show anything about Yokozuna. There was not one frame of a clip about Yokozuna. He's the champion. He's this. He's that. We just assume that we know exactly who Yokozuna is, And we just showed you that clip of Lex Luger, so you know he's not that narcissist guy that was here 6 months ago. But other than that, we are counting on the fact that everybody in our territory watches WWF and knows exactly why these guys are wrestling each other. And that's fair, probably, but the way they had treated it and then before was like, you know, Memphis fans were Memphis fans. They didn't care about that old fake horse shit up there in the WWF, but we're banking on this main event to draw us a house, but we don't do anything to promote why they're having a match, except it's a matter of pride. And Luger's going to try to get Yoko before this eagle eats him.
To bring it full circle, as we were talking about how AEW makes me sit there and go, who's this Japanese man? I imagine there was a lot of confused grandmothers going, who's this Japanese man, pointing at Yokozuna while they were watching WMC 5 TV wrestling.
Actually, he's Samoan if you're going to get technical, but he's supposed to look Japanese. Yeah. So what was your favorite part of the show?
For reasons that probably weren't supposed to be, I loved the Jeff Jarrett video just for the simple fact that it was followed by him getting the shit beat out of him afterwards. I think I sent y'all like a text message as I was watching going, I just laughed really hard because we had a civil rights leader just get assassinated on TV. And I don't think they realized what they did. Like in the pairing of those clips, it went, we shall be free. And then they immediately cut to commercial where he's just getting beat with a bat. So
it's like that Jason Bateman meme. The fuck you will.
Quit telling these people they got to have hope and stuff. But yeah, that was my favorite part because it was just so entertaining for me. I got so much joy out of that one clip that it was just like, yeah, this is it. That and the Miss Jennifer segment.
Well, I'm happy you had two segments you enjoyed last week. I'd gotten some comments like, this dude didn't like anything. He hated the whole entire show.
Whole
show. Entire show. Like the whole show. I was like, apparently.
Hated every bit of it last week. But this week was better. And I accidentally watched some of next week's, spoiler alert. And I like it a little bit too. So we'll see how it goes. It could shit the bed at the end. But yeah, like I enjoyed this week.
I didn't answer the first question, but my answer to the first question would have been a two-way tie between the two things you love or the two things I least liked about this show: the Jeff Jarrett video and the fishing segment with Jennifer and fucking
for different reasons. I'm a Jennifer fan.
Yeah,
2 reasons.
All right, what was your most favorite part of this show, Josh?
Mine is kind of a two-parter. So I alluded in my hate for the show of, you know, it not being really, it didn't make sense why we would be showcasing it. My favorite part of it, at least part of my favorite part, would be Luger and Yoko being in the main event at Mid-South Coliseum and potentially me be able to go and be there and watch it live. But also, I love that they are still continuing Chris Adams versus Brian Christopher, and it is so intense right now. Like it's like we talked about, it's translating in Brian's matches. He's frustrated. It's getting really, really good, and I love the energy behind it. And I'm week to week, I'm excited. Where are they going, and is it ended yet? And if it's not ended, how are we going to get to next week? I'm so entangled in all of it.
The two most intense moments on this episode was Brian beating the shit out of Clyde Coleman, that is, and then Adams flying into the frame from off screen to clock Brian in the middle of his promo. I mean, I felt that. Like, Chris is coming to whoop this guy's ass. This isn't like, hey, and then you run in. Like, you didn't even have to tell him to run in. He was coming in. This shit was happening, whether you wanted to or not. And it feels real. They may have been hugging each other and high-fiving in the back after it was over with, but by God, them guys can act, because I really thought they wanted to kill each other. So kudos for that. So if this was 1993, would you guys be buying a ticket to go to Monday night's show?
Yeah, because I was a huge Lex Luger fan as a kid. I thought Lex was cool. And when he became Americanized again, I wanted to see him beat up on the evil Japanese people that we were having a problem with at the time. But either way, my patriotism for this fat kid was just at an all-time high, and I wanted to see Luger and Yoko go at it. Like Josh said, Yoko was just so unbeatable back then that you were like, is he really going to do it? Is he going to finally do it? Is he going to beat Yokozuna? So yeah, I would have wanted to go see this match, and I would have hoped, even though I would have been wrong, that Luger would have done it and beat Yokozuna right there and won the belt in Memphis. But yeah, I mean, it was, I would have went for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely going. Like I said, I would jump at any chance to see Luger versus Yoko at this point in time, and got to see what's going on with Chris Adams, Brian Christopher. The American Eagles are going to be there. I'm interested in that, and there just everything going on, man. It's a good time period for the USWA.
Yeah, things are looking up. Now, before we get into Monday night's card, I guess I could have addressed this at the beginning of the show, but I figured I would do it right here since it's kind of relevant to one of the matches on the card. As soon as last week's podcast dropped, within less than 24 hours, I had private messages. I had people posting on the Facebook page. A number of people reached out to point out that Mario was Jimmy Valiant's driver. Now, I worked on quite a few shows with Jimmy Valiant back in around like 98, 99, 2000, that range. And at that point, he had a guy they called Bruiser Graham, who was from his training school. And this guy would drive Jimmy to his bookings, and the promoter had to book Bruiser Graham either in an opening match on the undercard, or a lot of times Jimmy would insist that he be in a tag match with Bruiser Graham. But prior to Bruiser Graham, apparently, he had a student who was a legit Italian guy who ran a pizzeria there in West Virginia, not far from his school, the Jimmy Valiant Boogie Woogie Wrestling Academy, or whatever it is he calls it. I forget. Named Mario, who was his driver. I'm surprised his legs can reach the pedals. It must have been, he had some kind of special arrangement in there. But anyway, his driver was Mario. Now, it's kind of a mystery to all how he got booked the week before by himself. But that is why on this week's card, you see Jimmy Valiant and Mario as a tag team coming in to be partners. So that explains a lot, a whole lot. And then we heard it alluded to by our mystery caller earlier. I should have just addressed it then, but I thought we'd just let it hang out there till the end of the show. But I don't understand why they didn't make some attempt. And they might have had, maybe they did get an attempt. It was harder to send videos back then. He would have had to shot it and literally ship a tape to him. But we needed a promo from Handsome Jimmy for Monday night. I think that really would have been the icing on the cake. Not him and Mario together, but just Handsome Jimmy.
You can say that.
Oh, Master Man, we're going to cook some pizza and bring it up to the Mid-South Coliseum, baby. I would love to see a Mario and Jimmy Valiant promo.
Awful of Jimmy Valiant promo. He showed me pizza anytime.
We haven't heard from Mimo in a while. It's about time. I'm glad Handsome Jimmy brought her out of hiding.
Yeah, she brought me out of hiding. I had to get up out of my chair. I ruined it when I saw Jimmy Valiant there.
What did Mimo think of Mario last week? We never heard.
He's a little big guy. He's a big guy,
Big guy.
I don't know. If that's what it takes to give my Handsome Jimmy, I'll get plump too. That's why I'm so plump. But yeah, I wouldn't have enough money to pay for that pizza. But is there any other way I could pay Handsome Jimmy?
Mercy, baby. We can work something out, Daddy.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole lot of woman, Daddy.
Yeah. Yep. Now get your pants off.
You're going to have to spit that dip out first, baby.
Well, that comes with it.
Some Jimmy has done worse.
What was it I sent y'all? Oh, no, we can't say that on. Maybe the after show. We could read the text. Show. Yeah, the post show. Subscribe to Patreon and see the things that we can't give out here.
Patreon.com/Retro Wrestling Archive, and you can hear the stuff we can't say here. I'm sure somebody's thinking, what in the hell would that be? Well, you'd be surprised. Anyway, Monday night, August the 23rd, 1993, 1 week before SummerSlam in Detroit, or Auburn Hills, Michigan, if you will. Mid-South Coliseum. They drew $24,000 at the gate with a crowd of 3,567 people here to see Yokozuna versus Lex Luger. They're here to see Vince McMahon in the corner. And the thing is, for us, seeing the numbers we've seen throughout 93, we're like, holy shit, they almost drew 4,000. That's amazing. But meanwhile, back in the 80s, they would have had a gun in their mouth on an average Monday night with this number. This number would have been cause for absolute panic. But here, we're high fives all around. Anyway, let's talk about what actually went down on the card. In the opening match, the American Eagle, only one of them, teaming with Billy McCallahan. I don't know who that is. I would be willing to wager the missing American Eagle, probably Danny Davis. Just going on past experience. I could be wrong. But anyway, even the makeshift team of one American Eagle and Billy McCallahan, they did manage to defeat the Hawk and Leon Downs when the Eagle pinned Downs. In the second match, Miss Texas pinned Luna Vachon. In the third match, Colin Scott finally managed to pin Tony Falk.
He must have tripped because that sumbitch
had to. In the fourth match, the USWA Tag Team Champions went to a no contest with the Dog Catchers.
Oh, my God.
I'm sorry, the USWA champs, the Dog Catchers, went to a no contest with the Moondogs because our champs are the Dog Catchers. I don't want to get that confused.
The fans were probably wishing there was no contest between them.
Now, check this out. 6 minutes and 17 seconds, Brian Christopher pinned Gentleman Chris Adams. We don't have any other context besides that, but
transferring ownership fully
yes,
to Brian Christopher.
That is his old lady now. Match number 6, PG-13 defeated Handsome Jimmy Valiant and Mario when Wolfie D pinned Mario.
How?
Handsome Jimmy ain't taking the fall, baby.
Ooh, that man got enough shoulders for 3 pinfalls, daddy.
At like 3 minutes and 15 seconds, Mario clutches his chest and falls down.
God dang it, Wolfie. I think you killed him. Cover him.
Check his pockets.
Y'all give us one of them pizzas before we go home. Bastard. In the 7th match, Jeff Jarrett pinned the Vampire Warrior to regain the USWA Heavyweight Championship. So there's a big one right there. That don't know what kind of video is going to come out of that next week. Then in the semi-main event, guys, you're not going to believe this. Jerry the King Lawler pinned Paul Neighbors, who was seconded at ringside by Vince McMahon, in a stretcher match in which Paul Neighbors did indeed leave the Mid-South Coliseum in an ambulance. Lawler's money was safe. No one got a refund Monday night. Then in the main, if Jerry Lawler would have had one of his famous heart attacks in that match, they still would have took Neighbors out and just to make sure that they didn't have to refund any money. And then in the main event, in a non-title match to further convolute the SummerSlam main event that would happen a week later, Lex Luger pinned WWF champion Yokozuna. Too bad he didn't get it done at SummerSlam, but that's another story for another day on another podcast. So a few notes of interest here. I was going to kind of run through real quick here at the end from the Wrestling Observer. Says the USWA drew its biggest gate in several years recently when they drew 2,800 fans paying $16,800 on August 2nd in Memphis to see the first Jerry Lawler versus Bret Hart match. They've been up $10,000 every week since that time. However, this week would eclipse that mark when the Yokozuna versus Lex Luger non-title match and Jerry Lawler's vow to return everyone's ticket money and the appearance of Vince McMahon drew them a crowd of 3,567 that paid $23,826, which is the biggest gate for a USWA show since 1988's Jerry Lawler versus Kurt Hennig AWA title change. They had drawn more people in the years since then, but based on ticket prices, they had not drawn a gate that size since then. I find that very interesting from 88 to 93. Next week's show will be on a Sunday, as not to compete with SummerSlam. That was actually on a Monday back then, which is interesting. So they said that Vince McMahon got to live out his fantasy of being a heel as he came to the Mid-South Coliseum playing the bad guy at ringside with Paul Neighbors to take on Jerry Lawler. It said, although Lex Luger versus Yokozuna was the main event, the crowd mostly came because of Lawler's promise to refund the money if they didn't put quasi-heel referee Paul Neighbors in the hospital. Quasi-heel? I thought he was just a straight-up heel. It says, during the Lawler versus Neighbors match, McMahon did a heel interview on television 2 days prior and said he'd be in Neighbors' corner. Neighbors came out alone, and Lawler grabbed the house mic and asked him, what happened to your big shot friend? Vince McMahon then came to ringside, accompanied by Pat Patterson, and cut a big-time anti-Southern heel promo in the ring and talked about how much nicer the people of New York City are than the people in Tennessee. And he said, in New York, you don't have to lock your doors at night because we don't have all the crime they have here in this terrible city of Memphis. And then he insincerely invited everyone from Memphis to come move to New York to see how a real city operates. People felt that Vince did a great job with this being his first heel promo. His speech and facial expressions were tremendous. He seemed like a natural.
It's almost like he was telling his true feelings.
Seemed like pretty good at shitting on all those people, didn't he?
He introduced Pat Patterson as one of the all-time great wrestlers and told Lawler that if he tried to get cute with him, Pat Patterson would be able to take care of him. During the match, Lawler would chase Neighbors around on the floor. And as Lawler was running after Neighbors, Vince, who was sitting at ringside, tripped Jerry Lawler. Lawler would get up and go after McMahon, but Pat Patterson got in between them. Finally, Lawler threw Patterson in the ring. Lawler took a few bumps for him, and as Lawler went after McMahon again, Patterson grabbed Lawler from behind in a full Nelson, and McMahon punched Lawler, and then he and Patterson walked out of the building together to a chorus of boos, while Lawler ended up giving Paul Neighbors 6 pile drivers, which sent him out of the ring on a stretcher and into an ambulance. He also threw a fireball at Neighbors for good measure before he left. Then, in 6 minutes and 30 seconds, Lex Luger pinned Yokozuna in their non-title match after a clothesline body slam and an elbow drop. The bout was said to have been very poor, made worse by the fact that the two didn't have any heat or reaction from the crowd. Most of the crowd left during the match after the Jerry Lawler match.
Wow.
The best match of the show was said to be Brian Christopher versus Chris Adams. That was given 3.5 stars by our local reporter in the match where the winner would get Tony Adams. It says, after the match, Tony Adams slapped Brian Christopher. Christopher then dragged Tony by the hair back to the dressing room. The feud between these two is one of the best in the country right now and is drawing a lot of interest from fans from all over. It says also Jeff Jarrett won the Southern title from the Vampire Warrior in what was said to be an awful match. The Dog Catchers kept the USWA tag team titles going to a no contest with the Moondogs in what was said to be an even worse match with a bunch of board smashing and weaponry. PG-13 beat Jimmy Valiant and Super Mario in the worst match of all on tonight's card. Miss Texas pinned Luna Vachon in what was said to be a hard-hitting match. And Colin Scott, the ex-Phoenix Cardinal football player who is being trained for future WWF use by Tony Falk, whom he always wrestles, worked with his trainer while McMahon, Jerry Jarrett, and Pat Patterson all stood at the top of the Coliseum watching the match. It should be noted, Pat Patterson was also there and watched Burt Prentice do his concert, which Pat found to be absolutely hilarious. Oh, my God. I almost read every bit of that just to get to that line. Pat Patterson watching Burt doing the concert. Because, yeah, they say Pat was real big about doing, like, karaoke and shit, too. I wish they'd have done it together. That'd have been amazing.
Dude, I would have loved to seen just an interaction with Pat Patterson and Burt. Just backstage, shooting the shit. I would no, just them chatting it up, talking about old
honey. Yeah, I mean, Lord, if there would have been an opportunity for a Legends House type situation with, Bert and Pat at some point. Just the odd couple type thing could have been fun. But yeah, to me, picturing Vince and Pat and Jerry Jarrett watching Bert Prentice do his concert, and just picturing Pat laughing and just having a great time, and Vince being like, "God damn, pal, what the hell is this? You let this guy sing Fresh Prince on your show? Do you keep a crowd?" And Jerry's like, "Well, we haven't recently." Then I'm sure once everybody started walking out during Luger and Yokozuna, like, they liked watching our guy wrestle a referee better than your main event for the pay-per-view. Perhaps that's why Luger didn't win the title at SummerSlam, because their 6.5 minute debacle in Memphis. Who's to say? But
that would have been disappointing to watch too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder how many people in Memphis who were going to buy that pay-per-view were like, "No, I think we'll save our $30."
Probably a lot more than they would have been if they wouldn't have had the tryout match. But I don't know. Like it just, I feel like if you take this match out of it, just take the thought that it even happened, just going by WWF TV back then, the logical choice was to let Luger win, at least for whatever moment in time, just for that night, let him win. And if he loses it a month later, whatever. But God, I thought that's what derailed Luger's momentum essentially was the loss.
He won.
Or not getting the belt, I guess you would say. That should have happened.
Even as a kid, watching that match, and he knocks him out of the ring and wins, and everybody comes out celebrating like he won something. I was like, he didn't win anything.
Yeah.
It's like me making a D on my report card. My mom going, "Well, it's not failing. Let's go to Pizza Hut."
Yeah.
You're moving up the grade next year.
Yeah, and it kind of defined Lex Luger, because in Crockett, he had those matches where he would beat Flair by DQ, or the match would get stopped or whatever, and he would win, but he didn't win the belt, and everybody's like, "All right, that's Lex. That's the guy who doesn't win the big one." Then he goes to WWF, does the same exact thing, comes back to WCW, and he finally wins the belt like 96, and everybody's like, "Who cares? We gave up on you 3 years ago." But yeah, biggest card, our biggest crowd they've had so far this year. I'm interested to see if anything's going to top it, but I do know we've got a big match coming up very soon that potentially could top it. We'll have to wait and see. So that covers us for this week. Remember, folks, make sure you check out P3 Radio. Again, I'm sure the guys are probably getting ready to record that, so they don't have a preview for you, but you don't need a preview. It's going to be good. Check it out when it drops. It'll drop real soon, probably later today, right?
Well, your feed's going to say it dropped 5 days ago for whatever reason, but we assure you it was released today.
And for both shows, both P3 Radio and this show, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Helps us all out very, very much. For all things related to this podcast, check out USWA podcast.com and check out all the great podcast and content over at WrestleCopia.com. And for all the episodes and all the different social media and all the things related to Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich, check out DougGilbertPodcast.com. Guys, anything else before we wrap this one up?
Do we still need a hero?
I think now more than ever, really. I really think we do. So, stick around, and I'm going to see if I can find the video for the video cast, and we're going to tack the song here at the end, unless Ray puts it up and it gets a copyright hit, then he's going to cut it back out. So if you don't hear the song, then you know that WWE's got a strict copyright on it, but I feel like they might have let that one slip through the cracks. Maybe. But give us one more little teaser of what they can expect here.
Always there, always beside me.
You are my hero.
Hold my hand every step of the way.
Is it more Bruce Springsteen or a little more Michael McDonald?
It's like
in
a
the middle, right?
bastard child of both.
Yeah,
Bruce
like if they-
McDonald.
Perfect.
he was the stepchild of the McDonald fortune.
Yes.
McDonald.
I just sang.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard that parody song. I think Tim Wilson did it called Michael McDonald Had a Farm, or he does Michael McDonald's voice. Michael McDonald had a farm. And he goes naming all the animals on it. It's crazy. But anyway.
Who was the other guy that we used to get confused with his voice? He did the Folgers commercials. And we were like,
Michael McDonald?
Yeah.
Or, Michael Bolton?
Michael Bolton.
Best part of waking up.
It's Folgers in your cup.
Guys, I don't think we can go on a higher note than that. So join us again next week for what will be episode 39 of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast.